Great graphics, I know. I know. Hello, Brobs. We're back with the After Midnight Ghost Book. And I'm sure this damn flash will shut off, but I don't care. We are probably on the 11th story. Mask by Giles Gordon. Gordon. Mask. He put on the mask. She said, I recognize you. He said, You did? She said, I recognized you. Spoken in, I guess she said, I recognized, not I recognized. Spoken in the present tense as well as in the past. The two in one combined, an eternity of meaning. The future held as well. A future with his hands. He'd placed the mask in front of his face. Mask, hands, face. Let me switch. This chair is not conducive. I will put it on my settee. I love it. I love it. Spoken in the present tense as well as in the past, the two in one combined, an eternity of meaning, the future held as well, a future. With his hands, he placed the mask in front of his face. Mask, hands, face. He'd found it on a cushion on the couch in the living room. For what purpose, he knew not, nor for whom. It wasn't his mask. Hadn't, as far as he knew, been made for him. His face, to fit his face, to go in front of it, wasn't a likeness he recognized. The features on the mask, eyes, nose, mouth, and so on, did not relate to his life, certainly not a mirror image or anything approaching one, nor a face he knew or could remember or was attracted by. If a face at all, with the eyes being black holes, holes seen through black, and the mouth likewise, and no nostrils in the nose shape, where the nose should have been. Little chance of the mask surviving as a face, little flesh and blood there, in its two-dimensional form. Idly, he'd picked it up off the cushion on the couch in the living room. Stood there looking at it. Oh, Oracle, he thought, could you change my life? His mind, his thoughts dreamed, faded away. Time went slow, slower, slowest, slowly and slowly. Which is to say, time went fast and he was not conscious of it. It overtook his watch, his daily relationship with the hours, minutes, seconds. The mask was on his face. What? He'd placed it there himself. Did it change him, transform him? He felt no different. Not that he knew what he felt before or after, or at the time. Did people know what they felt as opposed to others? Psychiatrists, psychologists, relatives, friends, lovers, telling them what they felt, what they should feel, when asked which he, as everyone sometimes was, how are you? He would think, I am. And beyond that, not know. How are you? I am. Sometimes he wasn't even sure that he was, beyond the organism, the standing, wasting body. If he were to hold the loaded pistol to his head, near to the eye, the edge of the head, the side of the face, the brain, and fire, the bullets entering the brain from such close proximity to the outside world, and the end of the barrel of the weapon, he doubted whether his life would be altered at all, one way or another, beyond his having to wipe the gunpowder dust from his skull around where the bullet entered and passed through, made a hole in his flesh. I am reading the After Midnight Ghost Book. This is like story number 12. Was he more real or less real with the mask on? I must look in the mirror, he thought, see if I can see myself, find myself in the room behind the mask. And he remembered on which wall the mirror was, and thought he would walk over to it. A voice, she said, I recognize you. She began to walk towards him. No, was already walking towards him, wearing an immaculate gown. Whether of the evening or the night, he didn't know, but it was not of the morning nor of the afternoon. Gray satin from the shoulders to the ground, pearls round the neck, hanging down in an arc, almost a circle, a string of them. She looked radiant, serene, exotic. Words such as those, she was unattainable but real, from the real world, therefore attainable. Thanks, Bob. She said, I recognize you. You did, he said, expressing satisfaction as much as surprise. And she smiled. He knew the face, yes, he'd seen it, hers, but did he recognize her, know her? Was it that they'd been in the same room now for 4 seconds, 5 seconds, since she'd said to him, I recognized you? And he replies, You did? Maybe they'd been in the same room for much longer, but he had not seen her until she'd spoken. He'd heard her before he'd seen her, too. I recognized you, she said. You did, he replied. Had they been lovers, he wondered, was that possible? Otherwise, how would she have known his features through the mask, the face beyond? Had she seen him put on the mask, his face move into it? Had she been in the room before him, observing from behind a substantial piece of furniture, substantial enough to have allowed her to stand behind it, at the side of it, to see and observe without herself being seen and observed? She might not even have found that necessary, he thought, thinking that he hadn't looked around the room when he'd walked into it. He hadn't expected to find her there. Of course he hadn't. He hadn't searched the room for malingerers or aliens, mice or rats, under a couch or chair or table, let alone his nearest and dearest. Anyone, anybody, woman or man, and she was indubitably a woman. She walked towards him 3 or 4 steps she took, gestured a little with her hands, a slight sense of movement of the fingers of the hands, having lives of their own, yet an affirmation of her physical identity rather than merely a vague fluttering of fingers. I recognized you, she said. He wondered if she had recognized his face, the mask, or him below and behind the mask, the body beneath. Did the mask change the proportions and identity of the body? How strange if it did, he thought. You did, he said, smiling slightly, a little fear behind the smile, wondering why she had said that she had recognized him. Had she mistaken him for another? He wasn't aware that he was in disguise, hiding either from himself or from her. He happened to have seen the mask lying on the couch, and he'd placed it in front of his face. Mask, hands, face. It was, in a way, an unusual mask in that its features weren't especially grotesque. There was no element of caricature, no big hooked nose, nor giant bulbous lips, nor gaping eyes, nor wild frizzy hair. It was just a mask, a different face, perhaps a little older than his own, but he occasionally wondered whether his face was, or seemed, older or younger than his body was, and his mind, whether the features of his face, the aspect of him the world saw, seemed younger or older than the years he had lived, the years he had lived through, the years of his life. She came towards him in the living room. I recognized you, she said. Maybe she had put the mask there, on the cushion, on the couch for him to discover, and that was how she had recognized him, from the mask, and not from the face beneath. She'd known that he would put it on, that no one else could or would if there were others in the house at the time. There were no others. There were no other echoes, no other voices that he could hear. Maybe she had laid a kind of trap, but why could that be? Why should she want to do that to him? I recognized you, she said. You did, he said, either in reply to her or spontaneously, because he wanted to say what he did. They walked towards each other. She first. She had been walking as she spoke. Then he walked as he spoke, but she had begun before him, speaking and walking, hers the initial physical approach. The thought occurred to him, could she be wearing a mask? Was that her game? Was that the idea? But why should she be doing that? Did she want him to think of a new person or remind him of an old? Did she want him to think her a different age from what she was? Younger, presumably, but not necessarily. Children played games with masks, but nothing about her looked childlike. Her face was familiar, known, but he felt that he hadn't looked at it properly, that it wasn't possible to look at it properly. When do you know a face? Hers was reminiscent of another face that had once been properly looked at, once had been more familiar to him. Touched, yes, that he had touched with skin of his, flesh of his. What? He thought. Steady on. You don't touch masks. Not intentionally, not the way he was thinking, remembering, trying to recollect. The feel of a mask is not the same as the feel of a face. However soft the mask, however weather blasted the face. I recognized you, she said. You did? He said, and there was little space in the room between them, little floor and carpet. Suddenly something changed, shifted, altered. He was afraid, had fear. She had recognized him, and he knew what she was going to do, what she was doing. She was coming towards him, was little distance from him, and was not stopping, was not slowing down, although she was moving at an even, regular, reasonable pace, not rushing like a whirlpool, and he was approaching her. He was not stopping either, or preparing to do so. He knew what she was going to do. She was going to walk through him. Through him? How could that be? He was solid, wasn't he? Flesh and blood and a lot of bones, and components that, put together in a particular order, contribute towards the making of a man. And he realized was having difficulty in stopping. He was walking towards her, and he would walk into her if she didn't stop. There was little distance between them, 3 or 4 feet. She kept on coming, and so did he, towards her. Why didn't it occur to him to stop, he wondered half consciously. Then, not that it should occur to him to stop, but that he should. Shut up, chair. He should stop, that no thought should have to be taken. The stopping before the bodies met each other, struck, should be obvious, instinctive, a matter of self preservation on each of their parts. Was she drawing him to her? Was that it? No, it wasn't possible. He was a free agent. Was he drawing her towards him? He dismissed the idea. I recognized you, she said, but I'm not wearing my own face, he said. I'm wearing another face. He began to explain that he'd found the mask on the couch, that he had not known how it had got there, that he'd tried it on and was looking for the mirror to see how it looked, how the mask changed him. When he'd become aware of her, heard her voice, but not, he realized, her, not, he realized, but didn't say, her feet, not even the rustle of her dress, the movement of the magnificent gray, or the pearls round her neck, or her body beneath and within the finery. Then they froze, each stopped simultaneously. They held the positions they were in, or were held. She said, another face, questioning his remark, or reinforcing it by repeating what he had said, endorsing its validity. Had he two faces? In that sense, was she wearing another face? An intriguing thought to him, if not to her, although he didn't feel particularly intrigued by it. She said, the words coming out, but her lips not being seen by him to move. If you're wearing another face, he interjected snappily, a mask, and there was frustration, anxiety in his voice, as if the event in which he was participating had nothing to do with him, were beyond his control and responsibility. She went on, not appearing to have registered his interruption. If you're wearing another face, does it mean that you don't recognize those you know when wearing your other face? He was puzzled, didn't understand, even wondered if she meant him to understand. Was she deliberately trying to confuse him, unsettle him? She said, "You don't know me, do you?" How could he say? How could he answer that? How could he try to explain that he did and he didn't? That now that he knew what she looked like, he couldn't tell how he'd known her in the past. If he had, that he'd put on the mask to try to escape from, but that must have been rationalization after the event, during the event, in the act of putting the mask on. Mask, brain, hands, face. He hadn't known the mask would be there, hadn't thought of it, imagined it into existence. It was not something he'd ever thought about, wanted to escape or vanish into. Know you, he said, and added in his mind, I know you, I can see you. We're here together in this room at the same time. This is all we can be certain of. That is all I can be certain of. He thought this in his mind, but said simply, Know you? As if anyone could ever know anyone, which he believed or didn't believe, depending upon the person, the other person, and himself. Her dress was very beautiful, at any rate. What's up, Robs? She was coming towards him, and he didn't stop. He couldn't stop going towards her. And all this happened in a very few seconds. In real time and out of time, the clock stopped, an eternity between each second, and continued, advanced, unable to be put back, deflected. And they knew each other. I recognized you. You did? Must have done because her face was at his, close to his. Their lips were together. Their lips had met, and they must have recognized, and they grunted, groaned, and made erotic, satisfied sounds, and down below whimpered within like babies in their sleep, floating messages to the conscious world, and sometimes muttering special words, darling, and I love you. Listen to that chair. Sounds like a dying beast. And they'd known each other forever, for as long as life was to each of them. And she said, I recognized you. And he said, You did? And they parted, their lives gone, their lips and their bodies. And she walked away as she had come. She walked away from him, and he hadn't seen or heard her turn, didn't hear her moving away from him, leave the room, and he looked at her to speak again, to say something more, to explain and discover, but she was not there. Not that he could see. He couldn't find her. Maybe, he thought, she's hiding behind a piece of furniture, a game, a trick. She's good at those, I think. He couldn't see her anymore. Worse still, he couldn't remember, a second or two after he lost her, what she looked like, although he'd held her. No, she had held him. They had been held. He couldn't discover her in the room from where he stood, and he looked about the room with his eyes, and he knew there hadn't been time for her to go. Space in which she could have left removed her physical presence from the room and from him. No one had gone out of the door. I recognized you, she said, had said. He knew, he heard it, and her body had come to his. Her face, her lips, and she had gone through him, and he had known that she had recognized him, and he had said, You did. But he didn't know if she had, or if he had recognized her. Remove the mat. Wait, that's not right. He looked, but he didn't know if she had, or if he had recognized her. He looked down at his hands and lifted them to his face to remove the mask. Yes, that was what his hands were doing, what his mind, his brain was telling them to do, told them, and his body was coordinated. The hands were lifting themselves up to the face to remove the mask, his hands to his face. He knew that, understood as much. To remove the what? There was no mask there, just the feel of his face, but it wasn't precisely as he remembered it. The feel of his face, and he stumbled to the mirror. He found the mirror, he found the mirror, had no difficulty in locating the area of wall on which it hung, and he looked at the glass, and the glass was there, and it wasn't a window. He didn't see through to the other side, to the beyond in another life, the lives of others. He looked in the mirror and saw, understood, that it wasn't a mask. No, it wasn't a mask. It was his face, a flesh face, but it was not his face on his face. Oh God, he'd lost that. It was the mask, the face of the mask he had been wearing, but this was no mask. It was the face that had been on the mask, that had been the mask, and now was his face surmounting his body, and she had known, recognized it was the face she had desired. And he had to find it before finding her, and having found it, he had to find her to discover who or what he was or had become, for him to realize himself. And all this had happened. And he ran screaming, screaming from the room, a great shiver of fear in the hollow of his stomach. Fear that he wouldn't be able to find her again, and a greater fear that he would. On a cushion on the couch in the living room, otherwise empty of people, was a mask. It bore his face, the features that had been his. What a weird story. Do you have the Wimpy Kid book? Yeah, I read the Wimpy Kid books every day of my life. They're a part of my DNA now. Who's that writer? What a weird story. Giles Gordon. Never heard of him. Anybody got anything to say about this story? Anybody? Even the mask of the face that is not your face, which is your face, it isn't your face. I will have to look up Giles Gordon. That was a pretty good story. What do you give it? A 6 out of 8? Giles Gordon. He put on the mask. She said, I recognized you. He said, you did? 10 out of 10? Was pretty good, wasn't it? I need to look up Giles Gordon. Well, that's the end of that story. And the end of this live. Let me end it properly with the chair squeaking and the whatchamacallit, spotlight.